In 2024, Hong Kong International Airport moved 4.9 million metric tons of cargo. That is more than any other airport on Earth, more than Memphis, more than Shanghai, more than Dubai. It was the 14th time since 2010 that Hong Kong claimed the top spot in global air freight. And yet, fewer than 40 miles away, Beijing is building a logistics system specifically designed to make Hong Kong optional. Not to destroy it, not to shut it down, just to make sure that if Hong Kong ever stopped being useful, the machine would keep running without it. How does the most dominant cargo airport on the planet become the target of a replacement strategy by its own country? The answer starts on the factory floor. Hong Kong did not become the world's cargo king because of its airport. It became the world's cargo king because of what surrounds it. The Pearl River Delta, a dense industrial belt stretching from Shenzhen to Guangzhou to Dongguan, is the most concentrated manufacturing zone in human history. More than 10,000 electronics factories operate in Shenzhen alone. Smartphones, semiconductors, telecommunications equipment, consumer electronics, a staggering share of the world's highest value exports are assembled within a 2-hour drive of Hong Kong's runways. But here's the paradox that built the empire. Those factories sit in mainland China. The airport that ships their products sits in a separate legal territory. Hong Kong operates under its own customs regime, its own trade rules, its own regulatory framework, a system inherited from British colonial rule and preserved under the One Country, Two Systems agreement. That separation was not a bug, it was the feature. International freight forwarders trusted Hong Kong precisely because it was not subject to mainland Chinese customs delays, capital controls, or regulatory unpredictability. Shipping through Hong Kong meant shipping through a jurisdiction that played by global rules. The factories were Chinese, the exit door was international. For decades, that arrangement made Hong Kong untouchable. No mainland airport could replicate the trust, the legal framework, or the operational freedom that made Hong Kong the default gateway for Pearl River Delta exports. Then, 2020 changed everything. In June of that year, Beijing imposed the national security law on Hong Kong. The legislation gave mainland authorities sweeping power over the territory's legal and political system. The immediate impact was political. Protests were crushed, opposition figures were arrested, press freedoms cracked sharply. But the slower, quieter impact was commercial. For the first time, multinational companies began questioning whether Hong Kong's legal separation from mainland China was still real. If Beijing could override Hong Kong's political autonomy, could it override its trade autonomy next? The doubt alone was enough to trigger a shift. Corporate risk teams across the world started drafting contingency plans. Logistics directors began exploring alternatives. The trust that had taken decades to build started to crack, not with a single blow, but with a slow, persistent erosion that continues to this day. Hong Kong did not lose its cargo crown, but it lost something harder to measure and harder to rebuild: the assumption that it would always be different from the rest of China. The threat to Hong Kong now operates on 3 fronts simultaneously. First, mainland airports are scaling up to compete directly. Second, Beijing is building cross-border logistics infrastructure that bypasses Hong Kong's physical role in the supply chain. Third, the factories themselves are leaving China entirely. Each front alone would be manageable. Together, they form a pincer that could reshape global air freight within a single decade. Start with the airports. Shenzhen Baoan International has been expanding aggressively, adding dedicated cargo terminals, automated sorting systems, and customs clearance zones designed to match international standards. Guangzhou Baiyun, and already one of the busiest airports in Asia, has invested heavily in cold chain logistics and e-commerce fulfillment infrastructure. Both airports are offering incentives to international freight operators: reduced landing fees, expedited customs processing, and direct subsidies for new cargo routes. The numbers tell the story. While Hong Kong moved 4.9 million tons in 2024, mainland airports in the Pearl River Delta collectively handled volumes that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. The gap is closing, not because Hong Kong is shrinking, but because everything around it is growing faster. Now, look at the infrastructure play. Beijing's most strategic move is not building bigger airports, it is building a system that makes the airport less important. The Hong Kong Airport Logistics Park in Dongwon is the centerpiece. This facility, located deep inside mainland China, will allow cargo to be sorted, inspected, screened, and prepared for export before it ever reaches Hong Kong. Once processed, goods will travel by dedicated marine vessels directly to the airport's airside facilities, bypassing Hong Kong's congested urban road network entirely. The projected impact is severe. The logistics park is designed to cut operational costs by roughly 50% and reduce processing time by a third. For freight forwarders, that means the most expensive and time-consuming parts of the supply chain, the parts that currently happen inside Hong Kong, can now happen on the mainland at a fraction of the cost. Think of it as Beijing building a bypass valve. The cargo still flows through Hong Kong's airport, but the preparation, the value-added handling, the jobs and the revenue that come with processing, all of that migrates north across the border. Hong Kong keeps the runway, it loses the margin. Hong Kong is not standing still. The airport's third runway became operational in late 2024, completing a decade-long expansion project that transforms the airfield's capacity. The three-runway system is engineered to handle up to 10 million metric tons of cargo annually by 2035, more than double current volumes. That is an extraordinary bet. It assumes not just that demand will grow, but that Hong Kong will remain the preferred routing point for Pearl River Delta exports, even as mainland alternatives multiply. The airport authority is also investing in premium logistics facilities, pharmaceutical handling capabilities, and high-value perishable supply chains, segments where Hong Kong's regulatory reputation still commands a clear premium over mainland competitors. The strategy is clear. Move upmarket. Let the mainland handle bulk e-commerce and commodity freight. Hong Kong will own the high-margin, trust-sensitive cargo that demands international-grade handling and documentation. It is a rational plan, but it depends on one assumption that is rapidly eroding, that the factories will stay. Apple began shifting iPhone production to India in 2022 and has accelerated the move every quarter since. Samsung closed its last Chinese smartphone factory in 2019 and now manufactures primarily in Vietnam and India. Google, Dell, HP, and dozens of other multinational brands have adopted China Plus One strategies, maintaining Chinese production while building parallel capacity in Southeast Asia, specifically to reduce geopolitical risk and tariff exposure. The numbers are not trivial. Vietnam's electronics exports have grown by more than 25% annually in recent years. India's manufacturing incentive programs have attracted commitments worth tens of billions of dollars from global technology firms. Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand are all competing aggressively for factory relocations, with tax breaks and streamlined regulations. For Hong Kong, this is the slow bleed that no terminal expansion can stop. If the Pearl River Delta remains the world's factory floor, Hong Kong's proximity and legal framework keep it relevant. But if the factory floor fragments, if production spreads across Vietnam, India, and Indonesia, then the cargo follows the production, not the airport. A freight forwarder shipping components from Ho Chi Minh City to Los Angeles has no reason to route through Hong Kong. The geographic advantage dissolves entirely. And this is where the paradox sharpens into a blade. In 2024, Hong Kong posted a 14% increase in cargo throughput, nearly 5 million tons, a record-setting performance by almost any measure. The airport has never been busier, never been more profitable, never ranked higher in global freight standings. But zoom out and the picture shifts. Beijing's logistics park in Dongwon is under construction. Shenzhen and Guangzhou are adding cargo capacity at an accelerating rate. Multinational manufacturers are diversifying production away from the Pearl River Delta year after year, and the legal and political environment that once made Hong Kong uniquely trustworthy has been permanently altered by a law that cannot be repealed. Hong Kong is winning today. The question is whether it's winning a game that is about to change. Beijing may not need to take Hong Kong's cargo crown by force. It just needs to build a system where the crown no longer matters, where mainland airports, inland logistics parks, and cross-border processing hubs collectively handle what Hong Kong once handled alone. Not a hostile takeover, a quiet redistribution. Hong Kong's third runway is built. The capacity is there. The question is whether the cargo will still be there in 2035 to fill it. That is not a question Hong Kong can answer on its own. The answer is being written in factory boardrooms in Shenzhen, government ministries in Beijing, and production lines in Hanoi and Chennai.